Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Nap Bros podcast. I'm not going to number this one because it may not come out sequentially as
This
to
should
like
be
when.
number one in your hearts.
It shall be number one in my heart. So today, Andrew and I are going to be talking about cancel culture. Let's talk about cancel culture. So first off, I think maybe people need a preview of like what cancel culture is. Let me read a definition from Good to Know or goodto.com. It's good to know, I guess. Simply put, cancel culture is the idea of taking away support for an individual, their career, popularity, and or fame because of something they've said or done that's considered unacceptable. Golly, I'm so glad that this didn't exist when we were younger. Now,
I mean, it did in and of a sense is like, all we're doing now, which is funny, it's like we've come full circle. So when we were kids, one kid was picked to be, bullied, if you will. Like that kid was picked on the most, blah, 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 right?
right.
Well, now one person says something wrong, well, then the whole group of people gang up on you and tell you how wrong you are. And, same thing basically, but just for a different reason. So all it is just come full circle. It's not okay to bully somebody because they're weak, but it's okay to bully somebody because they said something that you didn't agree with.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's bullying to that extent. I don't think cancel culture. I think cancel culture has turned into that for sure. It's definitely turned into this idea that if you don't agree with my position, if you don't agree with what I think, what I say, how I feel about certain things, or if you say something that offends me to some extent, then we're going to cancel you. And especially
Okay. So let's go with this. I don't know when did you stop being in America again? I forget. Anyways, it's not important. Do you remember? Ben Shapiro was supposed to go talk on some campus like Berkeley, I think, in California.
I'm sure. I mean, there's lots of times where he's supposed to go talk.
And I don't know. Some people didn't agree with him, but then like they started to like cuss at him, yell at him, all those other things, which was like, in a sense, they were trying to sit there and bully him, so to speak, so he wouldn't show up. You know what I mean?
Okay, I can understand that. Yeah. And generally because he's going to have something to say that they deeply disagree with.
Right, absolutely. So that being said, that's looked at as like okay now. So it's okay for us to whatever make fun of, ostracize is the word I read when I looked it up. Mm-hmm. It's okay to ostracize someone, single them out because of something they said that you don't agree with.
Well,
that's what I hate about it too. It's like all right, so now you have over here, when Trump was in office, over here you have Antifa rioting, breaking down stuff, and we have to be okay with that. But then, like, on the flip side, it wasn't okay for, like, people to stand outside and protest, make America great again. They were trying to be bullied and all that, if that makes sense. It's like two wide spectrums, and it's just out of control in America. And it's predominantly American-based issues, Mm-hmm. Other places are just fighting wars to survive. Here, we're just all worried about what other people think about us.
Because I think cancel culture came out of this idea of these people who were making money or making lots of money, but were doing things, more specifically doing things, especially born out of the MeToo movement, like, which I think was a great movement to an extent, meaning like it did get rid of gross, disgusting, vile people, but also it also grew into this really ugly beast where now as men, and especially as white men, it's much more like we have to be much more careful in relationship to what we say or what we do. And I know some people would be like, yeah, that's perfect, that's awesome. I'm talking like things that like anything. Like I love giving hugs. I'm a big hugger. I love, patting somebody's shoulder. I love, that kind of like physical contact. Even that with female colleagues, even in a Chinese school where I have Western female colleagues, whether they're from Australia or the States or Canada or wherever. I don't feel comfortable giving them hugs because like nor even like suggesting that we hug. Now that doesn't mean like if one of them approaches me and says, "Hey, can like somehow like opens the opportunity for me to give them a hug, I'll give them a hug." But generally, like it's much more restricted than it was before, at least for me. And it's again like I understand that there are good things about that, where like crass joking, where people are joking about sexual things in the workplace are out the window, and I'm okay with that. But even then, I mean, it still does happen. But like I'm okay with it not happening. But I think the extreme of that is where like if you mention as a guy, if you mention that somebody happens to look beautiful or looks pretty in a dress, you're like, oh, you look good today. Like even that can be construed as something derogatory and something harassing, and so it's kind of one of those that then has basically put mostly men into a precarious situation where now it's like we have to think about everything, and we don't really feel comfortable talking about things with people, and which is understandable. And granted, like and we can get into like toxic masculinity and that mumbo jumbo some other time, but I think that kind of leads into it. But then we have this idea of, oh, okay, well, since we're canceling that, since we're getting rid of that, where people are speaking in a crass way, let's also kind of explore this idea of canceling when it's something I don't agree with, right? If somebody says something that is in my view bullying me, like calling me fat. If somebody mentions that I'm fat, then I need to figure out how to end them.
I
For
got a
me,
little violent quick. He said, "And then."
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
don't actually mean like kill them, but I mean that I'm sure there are plenty of people who would would go with that, but more in like their livelihood and their possibility of getting a job and anything along those lines, where you can't really say or do anything that somebody would find offensive. And now, granted, I am also speaking from somebody who actually teaches in an incredibly cancel culture kind of government, where here in the government, if you have anything bad to say about the government, you probably get canceled somehow, some
Is
way.
that canceled or killed?
Isn't that kind of one of the same things sometimes? But
No.
more so like mostly canceled. I would say for me at my level, canceled. At a higher level, canceled, and then I don't know.
I mean, but you're not really a national there, so like if they kill you, it's an issue.
That's true. That is true. But that's kind of the idea is that I mean I don't know if they like I don't know if there's a way. I don't think that they would just randomly kill people, but they would definitely take away their ability. Like for me, if I said anything bad about China or anything Chinese challenging to an
They might
extreme
export
event,
you
then I would probably get fired, almost guaranteed. And
or deport you out of there.
they would report me, and I would probably also lose my visa for sure.
Yeah,
So
deport you is what I was saying.
oh, deport. Yeah. I thought you said report.
Not report. Deport.
They would probably deport me, depending on the extremity or the extremeness of what I said. But yeah, so kind of, I understand the idea of tiptoeing around those types of things, but it really, really sucks. Like one would be, like I understand the benefit of having cancel culture because there have been certain things that people have done. Like for instance, like Kanye West. Like everything that Kanye West is saying at this present time I think the dude deserves to be canceled. Like being anti-Semitic, saying everything against the Jews, all those like terrible things. Yes, cancel the guy, 100%, no problem. But also, the I guess like the challenging thing is like where does it stop? Right? There's no real judge or jury as far as who like what the limits are and stuff like that.
Right. So coming full circle, it's okay to be one way, but it's not okay to be another way. So like, kind of along the same lines, it's not okay to be a misogynist, but it's okay for misandry. I think if I'm saying that right, misandry.
Misandry, I think that's what
So
it's called.
now there's a whole bunch of microaggressions. What I'm seeing about men this, men that, men's why we're in this boat, blah blah blah. And it's like, so once again, you're telling me it's not okay to be this way, but then we've come full circle to where this is okay, but it's the same exact thing. Or another one, it's not okay for a man to be whoring around or be out and about doing whatever he wants to do, staying out all the hours. Now, full circle, women can just do whatever the heck they want. You can't say nothing about it now. I'm not saying you can say something about it before, but I'm saying, like, it's more, it was frowned upon before for men to do it, and now that women can do it, it's like, oh, it's okay. Does that make sense?
I don't know. Well, I'll say this. I'm not sure if it is frowned upon that men do it. Like it would obviously be frowned upon if you're married. That would be a big no-no. Or if you're in a committed relationship of some sort. I think it would be one of those things where it would be frowned upon. But generally, that would be.
But
Like,
let me tell you what I've heard. It's like, if a man goes out and cheats, well, shame on him, right?
right.
But if a woman goes out and cheats, it's like, well, the man just wasn't fulfilling her needs. Tell me you haven't heard that before.
I mean, I guess like for me, I've heard both. Like I've heard where like it's a shame on the man if he goes out and cheats because he shouldn't. But also, I've heard if a man goes out and cheats, then clearly the woman isn't fulfilling her responsibilities or her duties.
I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so
Absolutely.
the same can be said about the woman. Like if the woman goes out and cheats, shame on her. Or if the woman goes out and cheats, then the man wasn't fulfilling his duties. So I've heard both. I can't. Maybe we're seeing it more often that women are going out a little bit more because they never did before. Not never, but very rarely did before. Again, not a good. There aren't really any good reasons to go out and go and try and get multiple partners and stuff like that. However, getting back to this idea of cancel culture, but also the reason why people get canceled. So you were saying that, like, for instance, like I was saying, like sexual harassment, sexual innuendos, I guess you could say, or just innuendos. I guess innuendo, the word itself actually involves some form of sexual content. And so innuendos, jokes, crass jokes, sexual jokes, those types of things being canceled. But also now, especially anything that can be construed as racist, anything that can be construed as sexist, anything that can be construed as I guess, what is that? I don't want to say homophobic but I mean like basically homophobic, transphobic, any of those types of things, anything that can be. But again, the biggest issue with the cancel culture is that it's what can be construed as that.
The problem is, it's like you said, is how far are we willing to let it go? It's like at some point somebody's gonna snap and be like, no, enough's enough. This whole cancel culture then got out of control because the select few want to be like, well, that hurt my feelings, so we shouldn't do that. No, and it's been like, for me, it's been like a pet peeve of mine from day one. And I'm not saying because like I want to say racial slurs or anything like that. But like, I should be able to express how I feel when I feel that way. You know, like for instance, profanity. If I want to sit there and say a cuss word, okay, and you know, everybody around me's cussing, but then that one person like, well, I took offense to it. I'm gonna go telling you. Like that is my point. It's like I'm not infringing on your rights as an individual, but you can infringe on my rights now by going up. Like if you work at a job, by going somewhere and be like, "Hey, he's out there cussing," like that. That's the kind of crap. It's like it's that entitlement. You know, it's like nobody cares what you think, but you got to make a big deal about it so they do care.
So you definitely touched on a topic that's kind of a lighter topic. I don't think there are many people who are going to sit there and the way that I get canceled as far as my profanity goes is I owe my wife coins. We have a system to prevent me from using curse words because I use too many of them, especially in the house. The only one I am allowed is hell, and that's it. But my wife and I now have a system where basically, if I say a bad word, then she gets coins, and those coins add up to where like anytime she wants, she gets something that she wants. Let's just say I think I've got like 6 coins, and I'm pretty sure she's banking on about 50. So,
106.
but that's one thing. But I think that in and of itself is a little bit lighter form. Like, yeah, that's stupid.
But it
And I
kind of
know
stems from the same thing.
that's
It's kind of like that whole. It's just a select few that want to sit there and, well, that's not okay, so we need to just cancel them. Basically, I mean, it's like
right.
it's the same concept. It's. I mean, hear me out. You hear all the time about all these Karens, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Karen, right? You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, of
Karen,
course.
the Karen fringing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
America is a big ass Karen. If they don't like something you say, they want to cancel you. You're
Yeah.
being a Karen. That's all there is to it. The cancel culture is known as the Karen culture now. Everybody's a Karen. Let's cancel them because I'm sorry, Karen. I'm doing something that what you don't like me saying, but what happened to the good old days where sticks and stones, ain't nobody laid a hand on you. You're good. I'm good.
I think one of the interesting things. So watching Andrew Scholl's talk like in his special
You can't
Infamous.
bring it up because I was going to share one with you, but like I can't share it because it's not really like I'm going to get canceled for sure.
Well, okay. But he was talking about how like there was there was a white woman in, I guess it was in Minnesota somewhere. He was like, there was this white woman who came in, in full Viking regalia.
The couple walks in. The girl in the Viking couple starts to get a little upset when she sees the MAGA hat. I don't know what she's saying, but I know it's white woman rage. I know what it is. Right? I got a white fiance. I know about this stuff, okay? There's a problem that has nothing to do with me. I need to solve it, right? It's just, you're offended? I'm bored. Let's do something about it. I need to stand up for my black friends I don't have.
Now, do I think that there are certain things that people shouldn't say? Absolutely. And one of the things, especially as a Christian, one of the things that I kind of like tie into this is if what I'm saying isn't necessarily is because there are times, and we even talked a little bit about it with our fantasy football team. I didn't see anything necessarily inherently wrong with what was said, but
I'm still trying to figure it out.
well, yeah. But the thing is like the guy who said it felt like the way that he had presented it was in a distasteful way or a poor way or a bad way, and so therefore felt it was necessary to apologize. Now, here's the biggest thing.
He basically Karened himself.
Well, but the thing is like I think that that takes a lot of maturity, and I think that a lot of people are missing that maturity. But also, like, I think most people, if you say something that is against what they personally feel, or against something that they've tied to every fiber of their being. If you say something against that, whether it's sexist or homophobic, or in their mind, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, racist, violence in any way, then they, they're going to have that perception, and they're not, and the unfortunate thing is there's no conversation about it. And we were talking about that last time too, is that a lot of people will not give the benefit of a doubt. Going back to that idea of Skip Bayless and what he said about Damar Hamlin, people don't give a benefit of a doubt because it's an instantaneous response kind of thing. It's like, oh, they said this, so they got to do that. And the other aspect as well is like being like, because of the fact that you
Guilty
can't.
until proven innocent.
Well, yeah, there's that, and then also the idea that now you can't really say anything without having to really like tiptoe around 1,000 different types of bombs that are now available to you. Now, granted, me personally, I don't think I necessarily have to worry about that per se, because also like this podcast isn't huge. I'm not huge. We're not famous by any stretch of the imagination. So we can kind of get away with saying a lot of different things without worrying about getting canceled, so to speak. But
I feel like you're being a little more conservative than I am.
in what? Oh, and you mean in what I'm saying and stuff?
Yeah, like you're thinking more about it, and mine's just flying out my mouth.
The reason why I think more about it is I speak a lot. I talk a lot. And so I do have to be mindful of the words that do come out of my mouth. Not because I'm worried about getting canceled, not because I'm worried about people, being offended, because also there are times where I don't necessarily like, if somebody gets offended by something that I say, and I'm not intending it to be offensive, but they get offended, I'm like, that's just ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for you to get offended by that. But, when that happens, I still think about, I still do think about like the words, and try to choose my words wisely. Because as someone who's a huge proponent of conversation, debate, discussion, as someone who is a proponent of that, I want to have more discussions about certain things than I do about like, I don't want to get angry about something. I don't want it to be a fight. I don't want the other person to get angry about something. I'm like, I'm just trying to understand your perspective. I'm trying to like introduce my perspective to you, but I'm also trying to understand your perspective. And so along those lines, like, I don't necessarily feel that I need to, I want to be mindful of my words. I want to be careful with my words, but not careful in the sense of like, I'm not going to say certain things, because also like one of the things too, like, I'll sit there and I'll be the first to say, I don't have very many black friends for sure. And I'll be the, like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, no, I got tons of black friends. It's okay. My best friend is black. I'm not going to say anything stupid along those lines.
You're being very transparent.
I'm being very Karen right now. I got a black friend. I have a black. I love, I was
That should be the name of this podcast. Karen's
just Karens.
culture is the cancel culture. Cancel culture is the Karen culture. I mean, honestly, I feel like, I know I'm the one that said it, but I feel like that hit it pretty much down the door now. Like 100%, our cancel culture nowadays is basically everybody's a Karen.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Or there's a few Karens that get upset about something. And, I'm not talking about, you said something about the Me Too era. I am not even close to talking about that. I am talking about, there is no reason in this world that I should say something. Public figures like Trump probably shouldn't have ran his mouth so much. I'm not saying, it wasn't poetic in the sense of like everybody was just jumping all over it. But the point is like, Kanye, okay, if he says something, then you know what? YouTube as a platform, or whoever posted it as a platform, can sit there and rescind his right. That is their right as a company, right?
Yep.
But for me to sit there and be like condescending him or whomever when I know I've said something that I've been constant for. It's like nobody wants to be putting themselves in the other people's shoes. Like, hey, I've said something that's been misconstrued horribly and I got in trouble for it. So like, who am I to do the same thing to somebody else?
But you got to be mindful. Like I wouldn't say Kanye what Kanye's been saying has been misconstrued. I think it's pretty blatant what he's saying.
I'm not gonna lie. I've not been paying attention to what he's been saying. Like I don't watch much of
Yeah.
media, honestly, because it's all junk, anyways. In my opinion.
Well, the only reason why like it pops up is it pops up on my YouTube news feed or my YouTube because I watched the Philip DeFranco show and he talks he like anytime Kanye does or says something that's like because it was funny because it was like Alex Jones had him on one and Kanye's like yeah, you know, the Jews are doing these, that, and the other things, and even like Alex Jones, who again most controversial,
He was wearing the zipper
he was like,
thing.
hey man, like whoa bro, like you're going off on a like weird man, like I can't be like doing this, and it's like really even Alex Jones is concerned about what Kanye is saying, and so like. But as far as being misconstrued, I would definitely say like there have been things like the reason why I bring up the Me Too movement is because that's kind of been the movement that kind of like started all of this stuff. And again, not necessarily. I'm not saying that was a bad movement, but I mean it's like the Me Too movement, and then they saw how powerful that was, and then you get into Black Lives Matter and how powerful that's been as far as a movement, and you see all of these different things that go in. We're not going to delve into Black Lives Matter. I don't want to like necessarily go there, but the idea is that
What? Why not?
the there are certain things that like when somebody is offended that they will go and try and do or try and say like and they won't give the other person the chance to explain. You know, like if you send out a tweet right now that says something that somebody could construe as sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, if you say anything along those lines, then you know there's someone being challenged. Now, that being said, I would sit there and say like I will still like even now to this day, and I'll put it on the record. I don't think trans women have any right in women's sports, should be in women's sports. I'll say that. I have no problem. If that's transphobic, fine, that's transphobic. I don't think it is. I think it's more pro-woman than it is anything else, like pro-women's sports more than anything else. Because also, like, I don't have a daughter, but I know if my wife were interested in playing a sport and there was a trans woman who was playing against her, I'm like, this is not cool. Now, if you want to put all trans women into one league or one sport, fine, go ahead, do that. Let them play, you know, against each other. That's great, cool. Heck, like let them play like American football against each other, like that, no problem. Absolutely, they're sure great. I might even watch that because you got trans women who used to be biological men playing American football against each other. I'd probably watch that, at least one or two. It could be the XFL. That could be what it would be. Be the XFL because they don't they don't
They're X-Men. Yeah, it could be a Marvel movie.
So, but anyway, yeah. So there's that. But that being said, like, otherwise, like for the most part,
do you think? Simple question. Do you?
Yeah.
It is a simple question. Yes or no. That's all I need from you.
Okay.
And maybe one sentence after explaining why.
Good luck with that.
Do you agree that cancel culture is bad for freedom of speech?
Oh, of course.
Of course. Do you agree that 10% of the people are controlling the other 90% because of this crappy cancel culture, or maybe even less than 10%?
I don't know if it's that number per se.
Right, but I'm saying it's the few controlling many, basically.
Yes, but it's also the few loudest, right? Those few happen to be the loudest, and I would even I'll even go along this way.
So you're saying those few are like Karen, you know, the best word I heard my son call me. He called me a Giga-chad the other day.
It was a Giga-chad.
So yeah, it's like like, so you have like a Chad and then a Mega Chad and a Kilo Chad and then a Giga, like Gigabyte.
Yep.
So a Giga Karen, you have them Giga Karens that are just controlling everybody about this whole cancel culture.
So he called
Like
you
you
a
said,
Giga Chad. So Chad is the male version of the Karen.
it's supposed to be, I think. I think he heard it on TV or something.
Okay. So he
But
probably
yeah,
had no idea what you were saying. Dad,
oh
you're
no,
a
he
Giga
knew.
Chad.
He knew because I laughed and he knew it was funny. I was like, "That's a good one. I like that."
So as far as one of the challenges that we're facing. So what's interesting? Here's what's interesting. I've been watching some videos and even like kind of like paying attention to these types of things, getting into like the woke culture of like Hollywood, which is kind of what has the been born out of this cancel culture. Is like, oh, okay, well since most people get offended by certain things, or since it's like the patriarchy is bad, or since it's like, well, stereotypical gender roles is bad, or these other areas are need to be, we need to have more gay films, or more more inclusivity in films. Now, personally, I don't necessarily have any issues. Like if somebody, here's the thing. If you want to make a film that is just about gay people, fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, but
Have fun.
I mean, they have some on Netflix right now.
No, I know. But don't come out and say, well, if you don't watch this film, you're homophobic. No, I just not interested in seeing a bunch of gay people, doing gay things on TV or on the movie. I'm not
For
interested.
lack of a better word, it's gay.
I mean, it is. But also on top of that, like I don't necessarily. I would venture to say I'm probably more so on the lines on the line of, it's unnecessary to start throwing black people into what was originally white roles. Okay, so let's talk about the Little Mermaid, for instance. Like having a black girl as the Little Mermaid, I think is problematic because, again, now I'm not saying like, oh, okay, black people can't do these roles and da 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 da. I'm not. What I am saying is like when you're doing it in spite. Like the thing is like I remember Princess and the Frog from Disney. Now, granted, when Little Mermaid came out back in the 1990s, or actually maybe late 1980s, when it came out, there was, there wasn't a lot of color representation in the films. I mean, I guess Aladdin, but I guess like the quote unquote black representation was Lion King, which is unfortunate, but that's what it was. Like they didn't actually have any black characters in their cartoons. However, now it's a little bit more. I guess you could say it's a little bit more. Like there are more roles that black people can get into, and like I don't want to say traditional black roles, but like roles that are specifically designed for black actors, or roles that
Like
are specifically designed
emancipation.
for Hispanic actors, or roles that are specifically designed for those, to be more representative. And I like that. I like there being movies and TV shows about different races and being able to actually watch and try and understand from that perspective. I like that when there's strong female characters, because that's what the story calls for. That's what the story was written as. I love the idea of having those in there, but not going back in the past and saying, oh, okay, we're going to change what was back then to now. And this goes for cancel culture. This goes for woke culture, like making the Little Mermaid black. I don't think that's a smart thing to do. The thing about the Ghostbusters, like when the Ghostbusters, they were like, okay, well, we're going to have all women for Ghostbusters. I think that's a stupid thing to do. But these different types of things, these different like ideas, especially perpetuated by Disney, even to an extent where,
You know what I love too? Like, and I don't have to cut you off, but I'm gonna cut
go
you
ahead.
off. To the cancel culture. You know what? Like the number one movie like last year or the year before was on Netflix. It was that 365 days. Do you remember that one? Did you watch that?
It's called 365 Days.
I believe is what it was called. When
Okay,
a
no, I
man
haven't.
kidnaps a woman and makes her his slave for a year until she falls in love with him. Right.
Okay,
I mean, nobody said a word about it. Everybody loved the movie, right?
okay.
Like everyone's like, I wish that was me. Once again, it's like, but it's not okay, right? It's not okay to be that kind of a man. But you
Mhm.
over here, your number one movie is watching something like that. Anyways, I digress. I'm sorry. This just popped in my head. I was like, oh my god, I just thought about that.
But that's even the thing too. Is like what.
It does. It's not okay until it works for them, or it works for them until it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, and what
I'm
you're
okay with
saying
cussing
too.
until you cuss too much, and I didn't like it.
I personally, I think there should be respect for people, love for people. I have nothing against. I'm not saying anything along those lines. But again, I think there's a line between love and bending over and or bending over and kissing butt. Like I think there's a because even to that extent, like and sure, because we're males, because we grew up in a patriarchy, because whatever. Okay, I think that like the benefits that we got out of that, out of the like tough love. I mean, having a mother and having a father who gave tough love but still loved us. And granted, were there faults? Of course. And then having a mother who was coddling to an extent, but loving. Were there problems with that? Of course. But nevertheless, like kind of growing up in that and seeing that, like a little bit of tough love is a good thing, and even like a coddling is a good thing. Like having a good balance between the two. But if you don't have that balance between the two, it kind of falls apart. Now, I'll drive this back to what if, because I've been thinking about this, and especially as a Christian, this has kind of been like percolating in my brain for a while. What if all of this is stemming from like the church, from Christianity in the American sense? The American sense of Christianity, where our our desire to love people goes only as far as the doors of our church building. And so it doesn't go out beyond that. So you have single mothers who have to take care of themselves, have to work for themselves, and we're so against giving them any kind of support. So much so that, and I should say, the conservative Christian movement, so against giving them support, that they vote against, welfare. Um, but they're not actually out there also trying to help the single mothers. When you have,
I mean, for you to sit there and say they're not out there trying to help them, I mean, do you know that every single Christian's not out there trying to help them? I mean, you're kind of grouping them into a whole
I'm grouping them into a whole because
category.
I am. You're right. I'm not saying every Christian, but I'm saying most, a majority. The what we see on the face is that overall it seems like Christians are much more concerned about building up better buildings, having fun and entertaining services in order to draw more people in. But as far as like helping the poor, helping the widows, helping the orphans, not so much. Even though that's one of the major things, one of the major proponents that Christ has. Now, I'm not sitting there saying that I'm perfect. I'm not, because I don't. I suck at this. I'm terrible at this, and like it's one of those things that bothers me, and one of the reasons why like potentially moving back to America, and I want to be like, how can I make this happen? What can I do to force this to happen for myself, not for others, but just be a like talking about it and doing something about it are two different things. And I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but if I don't actually put my actions to my words, then it doesn't mean anything. And so wanting to kind of like get into that and wanting to find ways for me to help and do that. But that's I constantly think like maybe the reason why we have cancel culture and woke culture is because these people don't feel like they're being listened to, and really they're not. Now, not quite to the extreme. I mean, obviously everything goes to an extreme. It's just like you get emotions involved, and you're not sitting down and having conversations with people, and all of a sudden just everything just blows up. And I think that that's a huge thing. Is like when you're not getting listened to, and God knows I talk to a lot of people, and they don't feel like I listen to them because I talk too much. But
I don't listen to people. Like if I mean, this is gonna be funny for you, but like what you've been saying the last 30 minutes, I have no idea. No, but
that's
for real,
that's all right. We've got a
it's not-
podcast. You can go back and listen to it.
no, for real. Like if I'm talking to people, I'll be like, "Hold up, I was not listening at all to a word you said. Start over."
Why do you think that is? What do you think it is that's causing you to not listen? Is it just a thousand other thoughts, or
Yeah, I get distracted so easy. Like I'm just like, or if I'm actually doing something, you know, like if I'm typing or doing something, and someone starts talking, I'll answer like, yeah, and I'll be like, wait a minute, what did you just say? Because I was not listening to anything. Like you just say, like I'm trying to like do my job. Like mostly it's usually I'm doing work or something here at home or writing something, you know, and I'll be like, yeah. If I'm texting on the phone or something like that, and someone's talking to me, yeah, and I'll be like, wait a minute, I was not listening to what you said. Go ahead and redo that. But then again, at the same time, it's like, you know, like I can't watch. I mean, I can, I guess, in a sense, like a movie or something like that. But it's like let's say news or something like that. There's a news clip that interests me. You know, I'll get like a minute into it, and then I'll just get off of it. You know, because I'm just tired of listening to it. You know, like it's just not like you're not getting to the details quick enough. Like it's that whole now thing. Like, give me what I need to know right now, and let me be done with this so I can move on.
Well, and that's the thing is like we are also. I wonder.
Overload.
Actually, I wonder if that's also one of the issues too. Is I don't know if that's the issue as far as listening to people. If it's just because it's like I need it now, but like it's I think we're so reactive that when somebody says something that we may disagree with, even if we disagree just a little bit, it's like I've got to express my disagreement. I must, I've got to interject here, and also the other thing too is like. Everybody has to have an opinion on something. There was the idea of China invading Taiwan. Like, do I have an idea? I'm like, sure. Like, I have an idea of like how I would feel. I mean, obviously, I don't want any invasion of any country ever. But am I on the U.S. side or the Chinese side? I don't really have an opinion on that. Mainly because A, living in China and having a Chinese wife. B, being an American, but also understanding that there is an American mindset.
Well, how does she feel about it, your wife?
We've talked a little bit about it, but even she doesn't really have an opinion on it. So it's not really we're like, hey,
So basically, it's not in your backyard, so who cares?
Not necessarily that. It's even more like, why do we need to have an opinion on that right now? Like nothing's happening. Like everybody can like guess in ballpark and stuff like that. I think it's stupid when people go into the past and see things that people have posted or done in the past that, and let me say this.
Is this Kevin Hart, for instance?
Did Kevin Hart do something in the past?
Yeah, he was supposed to host like the Golden Globes or something like that.
Oh, and that's right.
He made a comment about he never let his kids be gay or something like that.
Oh.
He smacked him if his son was gay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing too is like being a comedian. I think should, as long as you're actually like doing it for comedic purposes, because again, it is something that opens things up for it. Like it should allow you to, make jokes about those types of things, and being white, straight males. For us, It's like we can't be offended by anything. Even though there are definitely white straight male jokes out there like crazy. And, but like and it all really boils down to this idea of identity politics, like identity groups and stuff like that. And I guess like for me, I don't necessarily identify myself in one way or another. Partially because I like to play devil's advocate, and so I don't sit there and I don't necessarily agree with everything the conservative side thinks, but I don't necessarily agree with everything the Democratic side thinks or the liberal side thinks. I don't necessarily agree with everything that white people think, but I don't necessarily disagree with everything that white people think. I don't necessarily agree with everything that the straight people think, but I don't necessarily disagree with everything. It's like I don't really latch on to, well, if it's something straight, something heterosexual, I gotta lock on to that. If it's something that's like super conservative, I gotta lock on to that. I'm like, I don't necessarily feel that way, but I will play devil's advocate on both sides. Like I will argue against somebody who is super conservative. I will argue against somebody who's super liberal. I've done both. It's hilarious because I've got our dad, then I'll argue against him. But then I've also got my head of department who's in charge of the English department and uber liberal, like uber, like giga-chad liberal. I don't know if that works. I don't know. I'm trying to use like new lingo and
That's
stuff.
a new word. Yeah.
Yeah. But even like having debates with him about transgenderism, LGBTQ, that type of stuff. And so like, I'll debate because I'm curious to know, I'm interested to get ideas and stuff like that and see where people are. But again, I try not to get into like a very heated debate. Try not to get angry with people because again, I'm here just trying to learn, just trying to figure things out and see where people are and understand their position and their ideas. I will never apologize for saying that I think trans women should not be athletes with women. I will never apologize for that because that's not. I don't think it's an apology worthy. Now I understand some are like, hey, like that's mean. I'm not trying to be mean about it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, in my mind, protect the validity and the sport of women's sports. Now, do I personally watch women's sports? No. If they had just a league, like I was saying earlier, if they had just a league of transgender women playing, I might watch that. That might actually be kind of interesting to see. But maybe it's debatable. Canceling somebody for something that they said before. If it was something that was egregious, there was actually a really good clip of Charlemagne. You know Charlemagne the God.
I do know Charlemagne.
Okay. He had this really good clip.
I always use the analogy of, let's just say 20 years ago, there was a highway and the speed limit on the highway was 80 miles per hour, right? So everybody was doing 80. Sometimes you might do 85, sometimes you might do 90 because you can get away with it, right? But over time, they realized, hey, man, people are going too fast on this road. So It's been too many accidents, too many fatalities, people getting hurt. So they reduced the speed limit to 55. 20 years later, you're doing 55 because you don't want to hurt anybody. You don't want to, hurt yourself or, end up causing somebody else to get hurt. So you start doing the speed limit. But what if you started getting speeding tickets from when the speed limit was 80 miles per hour when that was legal?
Yeah.
You'd be looking like, what the fuck is going on?
And like it's basically saying like things that were acceptable back 10, 15, 20 years ago are not acceptable now. And yet people are being canceled for things that they did 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think that most of those are stupid. Now, certain lingo, certain words that were used, certain jokes that were said, certain ideas that were held back then, because you change over that time. And I'm pretty sure, like I'm pretty sure I said some pretty heinous things when I was a teenager. And that's one of the things that scares the fire out of me about having kids in this day and age where they have access to everything, and they have access to potentially putting stuff out there that could be damning later on. And so I'm concerned about that because I don't necessarily, because I know children are children and they say stupid stuff. Even teenagers are stupid. Even my 29-year-old self was stupid. Like, and I said stupid stuff. Like,
29-year-old self was stupid.
hey man, yeah. Once I hit 30, I became super intelligent. It was amazing. No, but like, to be like, if somebody went back and saw tweets, if I had tweeted stuff out when I was like 15 years old, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe Nick said this when he was 15 years old?" I'm like, "Yes, I was 15 years old. Like, I said a lot of stupid stuff. Okay, like there was a lot of dumb things. I made a lot of dumb decisions when I was that young, and so to sit there and cancel somebody based on what they did that long ago, I think is asinine. I think it's just ridiculous.
I agree.
So yeah,
Cancel culture is retarded. It was never supposed to be.
I think it's turned into something retarded. I think it's turned into, it's basically, you know the Little House of Horrors.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what do you really?
You're talking about with
Audrey
Curry?
with
Tim Curry?
No. That's Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah.
Maybe I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, Little House of Horrors is a musical that became a movie where basically there's the main character is Seymour, and he has a plant that is a meat eating plant. And what
Little
is
Shop of Horrors.
First Shop of Horrors. And this plant named Audrey, Audrey, he is feeding this plant blood and meat. And originally it starts out as something small, like rats, cats, which I would feed a plant.
And he starts feeding the people.
And then he starts feeding because it gets larger and larger and needs more and more. And that's kind of what cancel culture has started as. It's like started as something small, something that was actually probably even beneficial. Think about it. If I could get rid of rats by throwing them into a plant, heck yeah, all day. If I could get rid of cats, throwing them into a plant, I'm going to get canceled for saying that I don't like cats. But if I could get cats, throwing them into a plant, fine, go ahead, all day. Maybe not your cat because you got a cute little cat. But once your cat grows, probably pitch it. But like certain types of animals that are like rodents, things that you're like, I don't really want this around here, moles, and that would be great. Like having a plant that would eat them, but then it all of a sudden grows into something monstrous and something terrible. And I love that I'm using this analogy of Little Shop of Horrors, but like it grows into this monstrosity that you can no longer control. And that all of a sudden is just getting worse and worse and worse. And people are just feeding it more and more and more until it just grows into this, like what it is now. And it's just this, now everybody is like, screw cancel culture. Like if you're somebody who like gets offended by a word that I say or something like that, we're no longer open for discussion. You're an idiot and you're out of my life kind of thing. Or and so it ruins the idea of what the main purpose was, which was to prevent people. Now, again, I think that there are people who do need to get canceled. Kanye, definitely one of them for what he's been saying. Obviously, Harvey Weinstein, of course. Kevin Spacey for what he did, sure. But then there are other people like I think Jimmy Fallon did blackface for SNL one time, like many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think there's necessarily any reason to cancel him. Like he did apologize for that because now doing blackface is inappropriate.
Unless you're Robert Downey Jr. doing it in
even that, like
as a white person cast as a black person.
But I mean, that's what SNL was. That's what SNL was. It was a comedy. It was funny. It was doing it as that, and people got upset about it. And I think also, I don't know, maybe if you have like enough reputation, or if you're a good enough actor or actress or singer, or you're pretty high up, you will eventually be forgiven at some point. Like, I mean, just take a look at Will Smith even. Now, personally, I'm not, a huge, I'm not a huge
Will Smith fan.
Well, not anymore.
Right.
And a lot of the things that he's come out with, like I'm like, like Emancipation, not interested in seeing it. But even that, like it's like, oh, okay, well, they still gave him an Oscar for his performance even after he slapped me. So it wasn't really like, okay, well, we'll cancel you a little bit, like you can't come back to the Oscars, Mr. Smith, but we still like you. But it's like
Your wife can.
Huh? Yeah, your
You
wife
can't,
yeah.
but your wife can.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just different kinds of things. Like even just now, if you get mad at somebody and you call them like names, and if that person happens to be influential in some way, or they're like, can you believe, especially if you're like really popular, if you're really, really famous, can you believe that this person said this about me? I can't believe it. Look at this. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, if you're kind of like that, I mean, it's like not, we don't know the whole story of what is behind it and what was going on. And so, yeah, it was just, cancel culture sucks.
It really does.
I think it started with something
making an hour long video in 30 seconds. Cancel culture sucks. Karen culture is the cancel culture of the day.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to us talk about cancel culture. We hope that you have something to say about it. We would love to hear your thoughts and ideas.
We won't even cancel you if you do have any ideas.
We won't cancel you. We will not. And we hope that you don't cancel us. But if you feel that you need to cancel us, then you will just kind of like be feeding into exactly what we're talking about. But anyway,
we'll create a new account.
If you're on YouTube, please click the subscribe button, click the like button, click the bell. That way you can be notified, and leave us a comment in the sections below. Do you think cancel culture has gone too far? Where do you think it's gone too far? Where do you think it's doing the right kind of thing? If you think that. If you're listening on your podcasting app, please subscribe. Leave us a 5-star review. Also, let us know what you think about cancel culture as well. I'm Nick.
I'm Andrew.
And as always,
you have an open invitation to our conversations.
Especially this one. Bye-bye.
Definitely this one.